text response.
I'm happy you roped some people into this community. And yeah, Josh, Peter, Boyne, uh, get to using those forums. If you got any resources to share with other people in the community, or you have questions about certain areas, go to the channel, ask questions, and I will do my best to funnel a number of mentors over to answer those questions. Yeah, LinkedIn's always so slow to get started, but we're live. Beautiful. All right. So with that, Yaron, my friend, my childhood friend, my mentor, please
Very
introduce yourself.
great to see you, Gary. Yes, it's true. Gary is a childhood friend. We go way back. We go probably, I don't know, 35, 40 years almost. We've done some work together too over the years, on and off. I'm Yarone. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer of a company called SteadyMD. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been doing tech startup stuff since a young kid. If you want to go to yarone.com, yarone.com, I updated it recently. There's a pretty good summary of lots of things I've done and projects I've worked on. And my name is so different that, in the early days, I was able to get Yarone on every namespace. So yarone.com and, um, you know, uh, Twitter, I'm Yarone, and, everywhere I'm Yarone. So great to do this with you, Gary. I'm wide open. Whatever you want to cover or talk about, let's do it.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone, again, please use the text chat to post your questions. If again, you're not sure what to ask, just share what your challenges are, what you're trying to do, your ambitions, whether that's building a career or a business. And Peter, Boyne, Josh, yeah, if you guys want to come up on stage, raise your hand and you can speak directly with your own using your microphone and camera optional. While we wait for some questions to come in, you're on. So again, going back so far, earliest kind of formative experiences were with you. You're like kind of like the bigger brother I never had, being the oldest in my family, and running around. You were constantly exposing us to new software, new programs, and a lot of wacky stuff. And it's just
Yeah.
so fun. Like even back then, you know, the way those things felt to experience were so empowering and exciting and new. And I'm curious, from your formative years, how, getting your hands on AOL or testing ICQ, which became AI chat for AOL, and all these other things. Like, how did you experience these things and take note of them and apply that to the companies and products that you built to then provide people with enjoyable experiences and benefits through those
Yeah.
experiences?
I I don't know. I wonder all the time if kids today have a similar experience. I think when you're a kid, you just need to play with the stuff that calls to you and that you like, and then things happen. You hear Paul Graham talking about this all the time. I think he just tweeted yesterday. If I was a 17-year-old today, I would probably figure out how to train my own LLM to like do something that would be fun for me, like win at a certain video game or something. And then through doing that, I would learn a lot. And yeah, you said it, Gary. It was like, 1994, 1995. I discovered modems. I discovered bulletin board systems, and I got a Packard Bell 486. No, actually, I got a Packard Bell Pentium 60 from Costco. I think it cost $2,000. It was like, I guess in today's money, it's like $5,000 or something. Insane amount of money for my family. We didn't have the kind of money to spend on things like that. And I remember going to bed the night before we decided to buy it, and I was like wondering like how the user interface worked, because I knew it had Windows 3.1, but I knew it also had some special Packard Bell shell. It was like a user interface that ran on top of Windows with like big buttons. It was like their way of like branding it to be cool for Packard Bell and having like simple features. So I do remember at a really young age, I was just super enamored and interested in the tech and the user experiences, and like wondered how they built that and how they did that. And then I got into AOL and discovered, as I said, the dial-up modems. That's when I learned the difference between a toll call and a local toll call. I thought everything in the 818 area code, which is where we lived, was like a free call. But I spent like, 4 hours connected to some BBS somewhere in like Van Nuys. My parents got a bill for like $100, and that was like an explosion. And so I learned that. But I think it's just, when you're a kid, I don't know, how old everyone is on the call here, but when you're a kid, you're just playing. I have a son who's 19, and he's big in the Roblox community as a sound designer and now game developer, writing code using the Lua programming language. And I see him doing something similar, kind of wasting his time doing stuff that doesn't matter, but learning a lot. And so I think that's really how best to get started. I'm trying to recreate that now. I'm 46 years old, 47 in a couple weeks. And I'm wondering how I can get back to that playful, youthful stage. I think it's just being curious, having fun, not thinking too far ahead around where it's going to lead, and then something unfolds. Um, so that's kind of those are kind of the formative years, Gary. I'm sure I remember together we ran into AOL, we ran into Napster. MySpace was big for you, right? Not for me. I know you had your own dreams about doing a social network for a while. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I think luckily we were both in a position where we could play, make enough money to pay the bills, and great families who can support us too.
Yeah, I love so much what you just said. And Clown asked a really good question we'll get into in just a moment. And again, anyone else that's just joining us, use the text chat, post those questions. Randy, nice to see you over here hanging out with us in Start Mata. And uh, William, too. Great to have you here, William. Um, but yeah, post questions to Jerome. Jerome's here to answer your questions and help you out, again, with your career, your dreams about building a business, whatever it is. But you said something really important. And it's
Hold on, real
funny.
quick, Gary. I want
Yeah.
to answer. Can I answer this question
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Clown?
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
a there's a
Answer it.
great answer. Okay, great answer. Gary, remember about 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, you did an 805 startup competition at the Civic Arts Plaza. It was SteadyMD, my company, and three other startups. It came down to two at the end, and then SteadyMD won. But right after that, some guy came up to me and shook my hand, a salesman trying to win my business. He said, "Hey, how are you guys dealing with insurance?" And it's kind of annoying to have someone like pitch you on their services. It's not fun, but I ended up talking to the guy, made a good impression, and I've been using him for 8 years at SteadyMD. So my answer, Clown, is call this guy at Lockton. Let me find out his name. Gary, you probably know him.
Here, let me
Let me
let me
look it
read
up.
Clown's question for people that can't see it. So Clown
Oh,
asks,
sorry.
yeah, don't worry. So Clown asks, I had an idea of building AI automation for post-operative calls for small surgeries in hospitals. What's the liability exposure with this? I have experience in the medical field, by the way. So yeah, like what Yarone's already doing with you, Clown, is directing you to the proper people to ask these questions. Anytime a
Yeah.
question is about like tax law, any law, liability, anything like that, you got to only ask a lawyer who understands that area of law. And a typical lawyer is great too as a starting point, but ideally you want to deal with someone that works specifically in that field and can answer those questions with not only certainty, but they're being held liable for giving those answers if something goes wrong. And that's why, like, you have a client, lawyer privilege, relationship set up, all these different things that are very, very important before you get legal advice. Same thing if you need insurance, talking to the insurance people for all this. Cool. Yeah, I'll drop this in over
So
for
yeah,
Clown.
this guy Lars, he's the guy to talk with. But my answer is I don't know. I don't know what the liability exposure is. I know that. there's a real difference between medical professionals like doctors and nurse practitioners touching and physically, engaging with a patient versus providing telehealth, where you're not actually touching someone. And Lars was able to creatively handle it for us. I think the typical insurance brokers sell you some insurance package per clinician per year or something like that. And so, and of course, their models are all based on like in-person doctoring. And about 10 years ago, we started SteadyMD. Our model was so weird and so different. And each of our clinicians worked on a per patient basis. So we needed insurance that could be covering us on a per patient basis, and Lars was able to figure that out. So I would reach out to Lars. I would explain what you're doing. If you're not ready to like engage with someone like him, at least he can give you a sense of what it would cost, and different ways in which you could engage with insurance. Like I said, on an annual basis, per clinician, on a per encounter, or whatever. He'll be able to talk to you intelligently about it.
I appreciate that. And so, Yaron, a lot of people that know me, that have been around me doing these office hours or my own, like, mentoring in different communities, whether it's my own or others, so much of what I tell people and share with people is rooted in my experience working with you at Iteration Group, where you had a product development UX firm. And like this too, right? So Clown, before you, like, it's fine to go and talk to like these people, get a rough idea of what factors you need to be aware of. But I would even say take a step back and first focus on your product blueprints of what you want to build for this, what it's going to do, who it's going to affect, like who it requires as stakeholders with touch points, either internally or externally. And this is so much I learned from you, Yaron, when I was working with different clients under you, and then eventually, like, working with clients like pretty much on my own, is doing all of that proper research, understanding what systems exist, what experience and expectations exist, and who these different stakeholders are that are going to be part of this ecosystem that the company, the product relies on, and then building the blueprints around that in the most lean, cost reduced manner possible, whether that's, in my notebook or on the whiteboard in the office, or, throwing up like balsamic mock-ups, which was a very affordable early prototyping wireframing tool back in the day. And so, there's something you said that was so important as well. When you're talking about being playful as children and your own son going through these things and wanting to get back to that, you taught me how to do that with the clients that we were working with. Just go step by step and explore what these people's experiences are in the current market, how they're, utilizing these different tools or services to try to achieve these outcomes, and then ask questions. What's frustrating about it? What's enjoyable about it? What can be improved? What should be improved in all this? I'm curious, in regards to the step-by-step process of, I have an idea like Clown does, and I want to bring it to market. What's your kind of like high level step-by-step methodology for approaching that?
I think, yeah, I think it's similar to similar one, Gary, that you and I have been practicing forever. But it's even, I think, more important now. I don't know about you guys, but I've been spending time with Claude Code and other AI tools, and I've reached the conclusion that building stuff is easier than ever. And if you take it to the extreme, building stuff is just easy. So assume that anyone could build just about anything. And so where does that leave us? I think knowing what to build, what features should be there and not there, and how to sell and market something are just like by far the most important thing. So I think, Gary, you touched on it, understanding the potential customer, understanding the user. And Gary, you're always good at that because you're super empathetic, in touch with your emotions, and I think able to tap into others. And so, shadow the user, understand the user, get away from the keyboard, spend time with them, understand what they're doing day in, day out, and ask yourself, how can I make their life easier? and and then how do I think about something that sounds really attractive to them, and then how do I reach them? And I would say build nothing before you have a really good signal that people like this thing, want this thing, and are willing to pay for it. You could build a landing page, you could hack together a prototype in an afternoon, you could do stuff like that, easier than ever today. But it used to be you had to spend 6 months or 9 months, hire a couple engineers, spend $500,000 to get something kind of sort of working so you can show to people. I think those days are over. But what remains most important is understand the needs and motivations of the user, and knowing how to sell to them. I think that's my answer, Gary.
I think it's a wonderful answer, and I think it's something that a lot of people hopefully either needed to hear or reinforce what they already kind of knew about the whole process of this. So we're going to jump to some more questions. I want to revisit that incredible pitch competition that you won. But for now, Lynn research asks, I am attempting to build a workflow tool aimed at the legal sector. To get it finished up out there, going to get it finished up and out there, going to ready to roll, I need to find funding or a partner. Okay, so they need to find funding or a partner. I am just a fintech corporate slave and I have no startup wins. Not the cool investor. I might have connections to fintech with either Y Combinator, co-founder match, investors. What do you recommend in order for someone that feels like they are lacking, especially in comparative to like a lot of these people that TechCrunch writes about? What would you recommend for them to seek out a co-founder to get to work building this?
I don't know if the co-founder is the right place to start. Um, if you're building a workflow tool aimed at the legal sector, I would hope that you are buddies with 5 to 7 to 10 lawyers, bringing your laptop over, explaining to them what you're doing. Hey, can I take you out to lunch? Um, you know, and I think priority number one is kind of really find 1 or 2 or 3 people that are super excited to use whatever it is you're building. And you say, maybe I need an investor, maybe I need a co-founder. Those are 2 very different things. If you've got something that lawyers want to use, um, you know, getting the first few customers, or getting $10,000 or whatever you need to build a really rough V1 shouldn't be that hard. A lot of lawyers are pretty wealthy. Maybe they would want to invest in this, and they sure would know how to put the legalese together to make it work. I guess I would also want to know, like, where are you strong and where are you weak? We've got Dr. Josh Emder here on the line. He's a medical doctor. He's licensed in a whole bunch of states around the country. He has a ton of experience with all things, healthcare and actually taking care of patients. He, he's got a very specific skill set. I don't know what it is you're strong at and what you are lacking. So yeah, I think it's a complicated question. But I would start with users. Forget about, some magic new person who could, figure this out for you. I think you've got nothing unless you have a few people who are really hungry for what you're building.
Yeah, that's expert advice. And also going back to our process again of taking the time to do the research and then formulate strong assumptions to build those early product blueprints based on, and then a clickable prototype, right? You would benefit so much, Lynn, from spending the time, like Yarone's saying, with real people who are in the field and understand again what they're doing, why they're doing it, but also connect with the ones who are resonating with you and what you're trying to accomplish, and then produce those blueprints. Whatever those wireframes, process specifications, user flows, user stories, information architecture. If you're not technical, you can still identify what data you need to collect and what it would be used for. You need to be a systems designer. You need to understand what system you're creating to then automate that system through technology. Do that to the best of your ability, and you'll have something so substantial to show to potential co-founders, whether it's a technical person, business person, someone else that fulfills a different role that you aren't capable of or you don't feel adequate for, so they can understand that you're not just sitting around trying to get people to do the work for you. You're actually getting things done and you have a real vision that you're acting on, and then they can see that in tangible form. And also, you want to keep showing that to the people in the legal field that you want to work with in order to get more of their feedback. Write your own. You make this an iterative process, like your company was called, iterative iteration group, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of related to another question. I see Randy here said, how do you get in a position to talk with a customer? How do you discuss your product without giving enough away that someone may take it? So getting in a position to talk with the customer, I'll tell you a story. At the very beginning of SteadyMD, it was me and a childhood friend of mine. He had this idea, Guy Friedman. And my first thought was, I need to talk to some doctors. SteadyMD is a telehealth platform, but it started as concierge primary care. And you hook up with a doctor, and if you like them, you pay $99 a month, and it's your doctor friend who's part of your life. And you can text them anytime, you can video chat with them anytime, and they can help you. And so the idea that we were trying to validate or invalidate was online concierge primary care. Again, you never meet this doctor in person. You just meet them online like this, and then you form a relationship, and then they take care of you. And so I sent an email to like 20 doctors in the Conejo Valley, Gora, Westlake, Thousand Oaks, and one person responded, or maybe a few responded, but one actually engaged, Dr. Jonathan Rosasin. Some of you might know him. He's in Thousand Oaks. He used to have an office in Moore Park. He's off of Wilbur Road near Moore Park Road in Wilbur. And I said, hey, can I take you to lunch? And he gave me the craziest answer. He said, sure, let's do it on Tuesdays or whatever, because on Mondays, I take a nap in my car at lunchtime. I'm like, what are you talking about? Doctor taking a nap in their car? Like, I might have done that in high school and college, at a different time in my life when I was, wild and irresponsible. But like an upstanding citizen doctor, like that makes no sense. Well, I took him out to Jinky's Cafe, I think it was at the time in Moore Park. And he explained that he is a cyclist. And on Tuesdays, he gets up really early, I think at like 5 a.m., and rides 80 to 100 miles. Takes a shower, puts in a half day of work at his practice, closes his eyes in the car for a bit, and then gets back out. So I learned so much from him. I started to learn his practice, how he ran the place, how he deals with insurance, his level of interest in this thing that I was working on. And I also learned that some doctors are really interesting individuals with like strong opinions and points of view about their sport, CrossFit or cycling or running. In the case of, Dr. Josh, who's on the line here, that's how I engaged with Dr. Josh. He was our doctor for runners. And Jonathan became our doctor for cyclists. And now I figured out a marketing angle. But the point is, I just emailed a bunch of people. Almost everyone ignores you. Nobody cares. You get lucky, one or two people bite a little bit. You beg them, you spend time with them, you get to know them a little bit, you form a relationship. Dr. Jonathan Rosasin is still a doctor on our platform today. It's been 11 years. He was our very first doctor. So just get out there and get rejected over and over again, but you'll find something. And then the second point, real quick, the question was, how do you discuss your product without giving enough away that someone might take it? My point of view is stop. Just stop. Just tell them everything. Don't be afraid. More than likely, your idea is going to be dying on the vine and will never turn into anything ever. Now that you've gotten that out of the way, be open, be authentic. It's so extraordinarily unlikely that you're going to say some magic words, they're going to hear it, and go build $1 billion company. Building a company, the idea is so, minor relative to the insane amount of effort and pain that's required to design, build, and launch something. And just give up the fantasy that you have this fragile thing that someone might take and steal and run with. I think, if Mark Zuckerberg, if someone like heard the idea of, the original Facebook, they probably could have done something that resembled it, but they're not him, and they couldn't build it into what he built it in those first 6 months. It's so idiosyncratic to the individual person. So my point of view is, who cares? Be totally transparent and just go.
Yeah, I agree. And like this is another thing that comes up often is like you said, it's so idiosyncratic to the individual, but then that gets compounded by other people that are on the team that have input, that are bringing their own perspective, their own ideas, and it continuously morphs. And also talking about Facebook, that wasn't the first social network. Like you said, MySpace, we're on MySpace. And before that, there
Right.
was what, Orchid? And then
I was
Six
in AOL
Degrees.
chat rooms. We were in Prodigy chat rooms. We were in CompuServe chat rooms. I was on BBS's. There were variations on this theme.
Exactly. And I think what really made there's two key factors in my opinion that made Facebook take off. One, MySpace went so wrong with their attention to the user experience with their platform, and they're just focused on making as much money as possible and overloading you with the most obnoxious trash ads and letting people run wild with editing the HTML on all the pages. So it wasn't functional.
Right.
You're just like getting
Right.
bombarded with all this sound and visuals and not knowing where to message your friend and be social with them.
Right.
So Facebook made it
Remember,
simple.
remember people
Yeah.
figured out how to put in some code so you can track who visited your page. Remember that was a big thing.
There's so much craziness, but yeah. But yeah, so Facebook
Yeah.
did simple. We made it easy to be social with your friends again. But then the other thing was that main angle where it had that gatekeeping, you got to be special. You have to have an EDU, address to get in. And then it made all the college kids feel special, and it just blew up because two reasons. But that alone, right, at a very specific time was great. But yeah, there was 40 million other people that were making clones of Facebook the entire time that they got even a whiff of like, success. Like, I don't know about you, Yaron, but I was playing around with and joining hundreds of different ones. And there was different ones that were creating white label solutions that I was kind of playing around with a little bit because I was working on my social network with my two buddies, and we're just trying to look for other ways to kind of expedite our way to like build out new stuff. And there was all these new things off the shelf, and we're like, yeah, no. But yeah, like the main focal point of your advice though is so important. The more you share, the more authentic you are, the more likely you are to hit a point of interest where someone's going to be like, "Oh, wait a second. Yeah, actually, I want to let me know more. How can I help? What can I do? Yeah, I want to talk with you. I'll grab a coffee with you." Versus being super secretive and weird about it. The only thing that you got to be aware of, and this too, talking to like a lawyer, IP lawyers, is what is going to have an impact on potential patents and the timelines for patents, or what should be like, an actual trade secret, your algorithm, for example. But everything else, you don't need to worry about. Any other thoughts on that?
I've mostly abandoned that, Gary, in the last 10 years. We used to file for trademarks all the time. We used to file for patents, and I've kind of shied away from that. to me, it's like a more mature thing. Once you've got something firmly established, maybe it makes sense to do that. I may be wrong. There might be other founders that take a different point of view and they kind of pitch investors. We've got this, patent pending, this or that, but I've never got it to work for me. It adds a little bit of like fluff and window dressing, but it's never crucial to the success of anything for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate that too because at the end of the day, the real difference between you and a competitor is the overall experience you're providing and how you're delivering those benefits through your product, your service, your brand, how that resonates with people to ultimately build a community around you. And that's what, been beautiful about SteadyMD and having like, Josh and the other doctors that are just like all on board and want to be part of that community and the unique way that you're creating community through this, doctor patient relationship. I do know Randy is working on a more medical side of things where it might even like if I recall correctly, biotech kind of like play. So patents might be a little bit more crucial for that, but that too is like
Right.
context matters. Like but for the most part, yeah, I mean it can be a waste. It could be like, not only a waste of time, but incredibly limited resources and capital to be filing all these patents and trademarks. Trademarks especially because, as again, iteration group, the name implies, it's an iterative process. And what you start off as with name, logo, and the branding that you want to create, it's likely going to change as you run these tests and talk to people and figure out, oh, wait, we can resonate with people. We can be more authentic in this way. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, most definitely. I think you have to be prepared to change, and you don't want to be too wedded to much. And so, yeah, investing too much time in some formality might psychologically lock you in a way that is not good overall.
Okay, I love it. Let's jump to Peter's question. So Peter asked, "Hi, Yarone. I'm building Unity Care Link, a platform that keeps context, commitments, and responsibility connected across people and organizations. What milestone would make it most compelling to investors at this stage?" So in the early still building stage.
Um, I'm a broken record, but users or the closest possible thing that resembles users. So, um, if you had three, four, five, seven organizations and people there who like raise their hand and say, I love what Peter's building. I think it makes a lot of sense. I would use it here and here. If he charged, X to Y per month, that's fine. That makes total sense for us. Or he can prove A, B, C, we'll be happy to pay him Y, some proof that people like it, want it, and are willing to pay for it. That again is the hardest thing to figure out, is to get users. And so if you have some signal that shows you're going to get or probably going to get users, you've got something to talk about. Otherwise, it's just an idea.
Absolutely. Work towards that product validation as quickly as possible. And you did mention
Uh,
like
I
running
saw
like
Gary. I saw Brita, not Brita, Shark, the company Shark, like the little consumer electronics company. I think they're a small public company. They just announced like a Brita-like water filtration product. I saw it all over Twitter yesterday, and they post this like I don't know if it's a launch video or they post like a short video talking about this product, and like you just read the comments. Oh my God, I want it. Where can I get it? How get me one now? Can I invest in the company? There's just so much excitement around this thing, and I think it's pretty clear that like they're going to sell a good number of these. I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know what success looks like in that industry. And you think about like Brita is such like a simple product, just plastic with a little filter thing. And so like this is more upscale. I think it's like $200. This has like a little touch screen on it. I don't know if 1,000, 1 million units is like good for, North America in the first, 12 months. I don't know if it's 10 million or something, but like they're going to sell a pretty good number. Doesn't take much imagination to see that they're going to do pretty good with that product. And so I think you want something similar. You want to make it really clear to someone that like users are going to like this thing, they're going to want it, it's going to make them a lot of money, or it's going to save them a lot of money.
Yeah, and you mentioned without calling it by name, but a fake door test, creating that landing page, showcasing like, the products so people can really understand what it's going to be like to experience using it, whether
Yeah.
that's software or hardware, like, a filtration system like this. And yeah, throwing up like a video like that on Twitter to test the way people react to it and start to funnel those people into a qualified wait list or to a proper fake door test and then to like a qualified wait list. Like
Or at
all of
least
these things, yeah.
grab them so that you can reach out to them and continue the conversation. Capture their email, phone. Hey, is it okay if I call you? Kind of thing.
Exactly. And then, yeah, like you want to then start working with them in that way, depending on what stage you're at, right? But when it comes to the investors, you get them to the point where you can show that they're willing to give you money, right? Do a pre-order sale, or again, do that fake door test where it gets them to the point where they try to give you, their credit card information, but it doesn't let them put it in. And then it hits them with like, well, the way I do it is like landing page, early access window closing at the top. So they have like some expectation they might not get it. And then when they try to get it, then it brings them to an error page that says, sorry, your early access window just closed. Would you like to like, join the wait list for when the next window opens? And then you get to like start to collect, yeah, more qualified leads of these people trying to give you their money. And that too means so much more in addition to the other data points that, you're talking about your own to show to potential investors or strategic partners or co-founders, whatever it is. So yeah, each of these little steps to work towards that product validation is really what's going to be the most interesting to the investors. Yeah, I wanted to go to the next question. Amir asks over on Discord. Hi, I have a few ideas which I want to work on, but I'm from a non-technical background, so I am really confused how to get started. I'm willing to put in the work, like if I have to learn coding and stuff, but can you guide me on how to get started? So what's the best place for a non-technical founder to begin with?
Yeah, this is tough. I don't have a lot of experience from this point of view because I'm a techie and I studied computer science and I've been writing software my whole career. But I think if a non-technical person approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to start something together?" Um, the only thing I would care about is do they have something here that people definitively, like and want and are willing to pay for? So, you know, Amir, you could be completely non-technical. You could have write 0 lines of code, but you could have like 10 customers lined up. Like, hey, I am an expert in, I don't know, make it up. I'm an expert in the small bookseller space. And I know all the top online booksellers, but the small guys, not Barnes and Noble, not Amazon, but like everyone else. And I know these guys, I've known them for 20 years, and they all have a terrible time with returns. And I know exactly what they need. And I talk to Mike at this place and Bill at this place and Jill at that place. And they are totally looking for a solution that looks just like this. Here, talk to them. Let's set up a lunch. Let's have a call. And if they had like deep connections, a strong opinion and point of view, um, real actual relationships or data that suggests that people would like it and be willing to pay for it, now we've got something. If they just come to me with an idea, I don't care. Like I have ideas too. I have 1,000 ideas. And so we need deep expertise, opinion, point of view, or proof. That's what I would care about. And I would guess you can probably get some of that without writing a single line of code. Now, if you need to create like a landing page or need to create some plausible looking materials, download Claude Code for your Windows or Mac, and start prompting it things, and it's unbelievable. It'll tell you, it'll build a great landing page for you. It'll tell you how to deploy it, probably to Cloudflare pages, which is free for like $20 a month. You can create the equivalent of a modern day business card. In the old days, Gary, I remember how excited I would be about like, oh, I'm going to start something new. And I come up, focus on the idea and like focus on the logo and like print really cool business cards. And like, it was like pretend you're like a kid playing house. You're like pretending and going through the motions of what building a business looks like, especially these days. None of that matters. But there are some things like maybe having a domain name that's somewhat plausible, or having a landing page that says coming soon that looks like is something somewhat reasonable. So maybe you need to do a little bit of that. And Claude Code is unbelievable for those kind of tasks. And I know ChatGPT has its equivalent product, and there's a few others out there. But I would say, yeah, have a really strong opinion, point of view of what the product should be, and proof that people like it, want it, are willing to pay for it in the form of actual relationships, actual human beings, actual conversations. Then you've got something. Until then, you have a fantasy in your head.
Yeah. Make it as tangible as you can. And like we touched on when I was working with Yarone, the whiteboard, notebook, pencil, and paper. Those were like the most valuable tools and the most accessible tools. And honestly, didn't really need anything more than that to create all those product blueprints, do the product and market and user research, and formulate what the wireframes were and everything else like that. And then bring that to like, yeah, some software to make them look better. Or, back in the day, again, it was balsamic mockups, which wasn't pixel perfect designs. It was just good enough because then we'd bring in other designers who did the pixel perfect designs and then the engineering team to make it come to life. And they understood exactly what they had to do based on what those blueprints showed them, right? So yeah, for non-technical, you can do all that stuff on your own with, again, pencil, paper, whiteboard, or other tools, and then bring it into Claude and other ones to refine it, and then go back and reconnect with those different potential customers, users, and keep going through the process and update it and
Gary,
update it.
you bring up a great point. Let's say I'm building a product for lawyers, and I have some opinion about it, and I think it's great. I've been honing it for like 6 months, and I have lunch with a lawyer, and of course they barely hear what I'm talking about, or barely understand what I'm saying, or I'm having trouble communicating to them what I mean and why it's important. But then they do say a few things that are you didn't think about, or are really complimentary to what you're doing, or are great little twists on your idea. And you meet with them next week and you tell them, hey, look, I incorporated your idea, and you show it to them, but you don't understand. And so you screwed it up a little bit. They get excited. They start pointing out, no, you should do this. You should add this. You should remove this. So, showing something that's kind of crappy is useful. Maybe sometimes someone will lean in and tell you why it's not so good. And now you have the most important thing, which is an engaged potential customer. It reminds me of there's like a famous trick. I think it was like a Stanford professor or something. Before he gave like a 50 slide presentation, he made like a really obvious and dumb error on the first slide, so that everyone like noticed it, pointed it out, kind of raised their hand. Hey, look, oh, that's right. And so for the rest of the presentation, everyone was leaning in, looking for the next mistake. So there's some truth to that. You don't want to manipulate people, but getting them to engage with you, showing them, a crappy first version, and then responding to what they told you, showing them a refined version that incorporates some of what they thought, that can help, further engage.
Yeah, and I mean that's just the most authentic aspect of the process is you're building something for these people, right? You're trying to figure out how to make them, again, have an enjoyable experience, gain benefits from that, and then find value in that. And when you're engaging with them in this way early on with something that is really rough or really bad, it's still empowering them to lend their expertise, their opinions, their thoughts to the process of not just helping this idea take form. But if you're vulnerable enough and honest enough, you have enough humility, you're going to make it clear to them that they're also helping you grow as a person, as an individual through these interactions with them, because you're, gaining more knowledge, you're learning how to apply that, you're practicing that for, critical thinking to solve problems with these people. And that's a wonderful place to be in as human beings. So find yourself being endeared to them, or yeah, or
Gary, you bring up such a great point, and this is something that I know has been like your thing for a really long time. Authenticity. Just say, I don't know. Say, hey, I'm trying to learn. Hey, I don't know enough about your industry. If you are authentic and you don't pretend like you know everything or pretend like you have a fully baked concept or a fully baked solution, a lot of people warm to that. They think, oh, here's just a guy working really hard to try to figure this out. And I think that can work really well.
you just made me go through little mini traumas of working for you early on, where
Nah,
no, good ones, fun ones, where you're going, Gary, what are you doing? Why are you writing so much? You need to be more concise. And then also me changing what my sign off was. Because I was like, Yaron, I don't know like what to do like in this professional environment. What should I say from? Should I like, like whatever, and you're like, just whatever, figure it out. And then I went with authentically, and then that's like what I've stuck with since then. And
good thing.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
so fun. But yeah,
That's
dude.
like a Gary trademark move right there. Authentically, comma Gary.
Okay,
Says
so
a lot.
I love it. I appreciate you, man. Okay, so Josh, because we're coming up on time, I want to get to Josh's good question. Your own, thanks for the kind words. Now that you have been through a journey of building a VC-backed business, would you do it again, or would you try to
Ah,
seed strap, bootstrap? And this also plays into what Dr. Paxmore on Twitch was also presenting to Lynn and others. Why do you need an investor? So we can
right.
kind of wrap these two up together.
Okay, I think there's really two reasons to want or need investors. Um, and then would I do it again? First of all, I think a lot of the validation, product market fit, finding your first 5, 7, 10 customers, you should be able to do it on your own. You should not need a lot of money. I know there's a similar question here from Lynn that says, I need a little bit of money to cover token costs, Google Cloud Platform costs, small incidentals, and like my thought, my gut feeling to that is bullshit. What is it these days? $20 for a Claude Max plan or whatever it is, the entry level Claude plan, maybe 20, 40, 60, $80 for Google Cloud Platform or Amazon Web Services. Let me exaggerate and say it's 300 to 500 a month to explore some idea. If you're not willing to spend that money, or if you don't have that money, don't start. Just don't. So 3, 4, $500 for 6 months. If you're not willing to make that investment, don't do it. And in terms of like reasons to get investors, I think one reason, the best reason is Gary. You've been into music your whole life. Used to be the photographer for like really awesome bands. My little brother had his own band and record label, and I learned a long time ago that the way the record labels think is they want to sign bands that don't need them, bands that already have an awesome sound, already putting out records, already have great merch, already fill venues, and then they're like, yeah, I want to sign that band. That's a cool band, and then they pour fuel in the fire. I think ideally you take outside money once you've figured something out. You figured out a product that people want, you've figured out customers who are willing to pay for it. You just need more money to get more customers, to fully build out the product, to just enhance what you're doing. But the kernel of the thing is already figured out. So I think you know that's a good reason to raise money. Another reason people raise money is to get some outside humans to value what you're doing. So let's say you're toiling for 2 years, you figure something out, and you get someone to you raise, $3 million at $10 million post. Well, that's kind of cool. This thing that you have maybe half of, or 40% of, or 70% of, is now worth, 5, 6, 7, $8 million, at least on paper. And so it's an outside external validation that the market appreciates what you're doing. Sometimes that's useful. And so I think those are some reasons to raise money. I think some people raise money for the wrong reasons. They think like that's the default, that's what you're supposed to do. Ego, they want to be cool. They see other people doing it. They want some status. I think if you're earnestly focused on the customer, on the user, on solving their problems, the answer kind of reveals itself. Do you need to raise money, and how much, and when? It is a bit of a game. If you're good at it and you understand the startup game, like someone like me, I think I'm in a position where just about any reasonable idea, I can go and raise money against it because I've got track record and credibility. That's kind of a different reason to raise money, just kind of like, oh, let's play the game again. But I would hope that it's rooted in like actual, proper validated product.
I think too, something that's important about as an alternative to don't start if you can't, figure out how to put that money into it. In case of like what Lynn asked about with this AI, product, figure out how to do it manually. Why do you need to jump to AI right now in order to provide that service to these people? Why can't you
It's
figure
a
out?
great.
Thank you. I learned it from you. Learned from you working with
Hmm.
you, man. Because that's what we were doing with a lot of the founders that were coming to us, right? They wanted to
Right.
rush ahead and build these hugely,
Build a space shuttle, and we said just fake it, just pretend like you got to the moon with some hand waving, and then see what happens. It's a bad analogy, but there has to be yeah, like AI is a great example, Gary. You can just, let's say the AI, like, be the AI chatbot, like literally wait for the message to come in and jump on your cell phone and respond like you're the AI, if that's possible. It might be crazy for your particular idea, but
yeah.
do
But I
things
mean,
that don't.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely. But it goes back to again, like, what I learned with you and what we're doing. Also, again, technology is a tool to automate these systems. Do we have the right systems? A system capable of producing the results that not only are we trying to produce, but that the customer, the client are expecting or the user is expecting, right? And you can figure out how to do that manually. That's the last company I co-founded. We did that. We made it look like it was all that it was on that it was Jolt. It was on-demand delivery, right? For back house operations for restaurants to take delivery orders to their customers, whether it was on the phone or through the website or whatever else. We told them we had this amazing algorithm. We didn't have an algorithm. We had nothing more than a Google form that was rescanned to look like a native app on iOS, but all it did was, people filled in this form and then it emailed us and then we got the information and went, oh, okay, we know where it's going, what time it's picking up, what the order is, how much it is. And now we're using all our human brains and other like, tools to just like act on that information. And we proved that we can get the orders from a restaurant to the customer faster and with more accountability because these different checkpoints we built into the system that were manually, acted on. And then we raised money to, build out the actual technology to operate it. And yeah, I learned that from you, doing it lean, doing things that don't scale, and making sure that the underlying systems work and we're providing that experience that was enjoyable and beneficial to people first. So yeah, man.
yeah, it's a great story. Focusing on the user and the user experience and the ultimate outcome that the user wants, and then take lots of shortcuts along the way, because there's a trap. There's a trap that you're going to build a bunch of stuff and throw it away. If you talk to a software developer, that's like their saddest things in life is when they built like all this cool stuff and the code never gets run, it never gets used. And it happens to all of us. And it's tough. And in the old days, it cost a lot. Nowadays, it's different, you know. I heard someone say, you know, in the old days, we used to say, don't boil the ocean. Well, like with AI and with Claude, it's like now we can boil the ocean. Now we can do things that, you know, before would have been way too costly and way too distracting. But yeah, focusing on the user and their goals and how you can accomplish those, even if you do it super manually, until you've got enough volume through the system that you know you've got something.
Okay, we're coming up on time. We're a little over time. If you have a hard stop, let me know. If not, then I'll squeeze in.
I do actually, Gary.
Okay,
I
okay,
need to
okay.
jump
No problem.
here for another call here in 30 minutes.
Okay, you're amazing. I want to thank you so much for being a part of this, making yourself accessible to the whole community. Before you do go, do you have any final thoughts, recommendations? I know you gave me a list of books to read when I first started working with you. Anything
Oh,
like that?
bookshelf. Loving audiobooks these days. I'm on Audible, download all kinds of good stuff while I'm commuting or going on a run or at the gym. I really, for those of you who don't listen, it's super popular, but I really like the Acquired podcast. That's a really good one. If you haven't downloaded Claude Code, installed it, and say, build me a landing page for, or build me a website for, or look at my current website and tell me how it could be better, or take my current website and build me a new version of it. I would like super strongly recommend you do that. Forget OpenClaw and forget Hermes and forget like all these cool buzzy things that are happening out there. Just look at Claude Code, download it, try something with that. Spend the 3 hours to like kind of understand what's going on. Totally worth it. It will. I think that is like the most important platform. And there's a lot of things that are like it, but I think that to me is the next 5-10 years of building stuff is an experience similar to Claude Code. So I would like strongly recommend you play with that.
Dr. Paxmar over on Twitch does have a warning to make sure you know how the permissions are working before you start running it and doing stuff. You may give it permissions on your personal machine that could be very bad. So just take the time to go by the book and make
Yeah.
sure it's done right. He did suggest that setting up a GitHub and using it on web first to kind of learn and figure it out is a great way to get started and have a little bit
Yeah.
more security. Yes.
That's a good point. If you ideally if you have a laptop that has nothing precious on it or whatever, that's a good way to get started.
Dr. Paxmore
But
does enjoy buying used laptops for dirt cheap.
Gary, great to talk to you and to see you. And let's hang out soon. Maybe grab lunch or something.
Oh yeah, that's well overdue. And I also need to follow up with Alon too and you and figure out, yeah, if we can catch some music because that too's been a very long time. And I got a new camera. I gotta take some pictures. So I appreciate you. Thank
Oh,
you
good.
so
I
much.
need I need some photos and stuff. Let's talk. I got
Awesome.
some for
Perfect,
fun, you know.
perfect. Yeah, yeah, man, I'm having fun with this thing. It's amazing. Okay, so thank you everyone for tuning in. Yaron, again, you're wonderful. Thank you for being a good inspiration and source of education and mentorship for myself as well. I'll catch you later, man. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a part of
Yeah.
this.